Britain didn't wake up to a political disagreement, it woke up to a political ambush. What was sold as steady leadership has spiralled into open revolt, with MPs moving to trigger a no-confidence vote and the Prime Minister visibly rattled. This isn't background Westminster noise, this is the sound of authority cracking. Brexit, the issue that was meant to be done, has stormed back through the front door, muddy boots and all. And this time, it's not just about policy, it's about trust, power, and whether voters are being quietly mugged behind closed doors. Let's break down exactly how this exploded, piece by piece. The crisis ignited the moment the Prime Minister signalled a clear pivot towards closer alignment with Brussels, using language that rang alarm bells across the Commons. This was not framed as a bold announcement, but that's precisely why it landed so hard. MPs and voters alike heard something dangerously familiar: gradual reintegration without consent. For those who supported Brexit, the promise was explicit: control over laws, borders and trade. What they heard instead was the slow return of shared oversight, repackaged as pragmatism. In Westminster, perception matters more than footnotes. The suggestion that Brexit could be managed into something softer shattered confidence instantly. The damage was not theoretical, it was emotional, immediate, and deeply political. And once trust starts wobbling, it doesn't wobble quietly, it collapses loudly. Inside Parliament, the mood turned hostile at breathtaking speed. Senior MPs described an atmosphere closer to a leadership crisis than a policy disagreement. Corridors buzzed with disbelief, meetings multiplied, and loyalty evaporated almost overnight. This was not oppositional theatre, this was internal panic. MPs privately admitted they had never seen a sitting Prime Minister look so exposed so quickly. Public statements tried to project calm, but behind closed doors, the language was brutal. Authority is a fragile thing in politics. Once MPs sense weakness, restraint disappears. That moment arrived fast, and when it did, the Prime Minister found himself surrounded not by allies, but survivalists. But nothing fuels fury faster than policy hitting real lives, and that's exactly what happened next. The fishing deal became the emotional flashpoint. Britain agreed to extend European access to UK waters until 2038, pushing control further into the future than many fishermen expected to see in their working lives. For coastal communities promised renewal after Brexit, this felt like being sold a return ticket that never arrived. Boats, quotas, and livelihoods suddenly became bargaining chips again. MPs representing these areas did not mince their words. They called it a betrayal, plain and simple. This wasn't abstract sovereignty, it was income, heritage, and survival. Once that perception took hold, the government lost the room, and it never got it back. And just when MPs thought the damage had peaked, regulation entered the picture. Regulatory alignment on food and agriculture poured petrol on the flames. Under the agreements, oversight would sit with European institutions, with final authority resting outside British courts. Critics argued this reversed one core achievements of Brexit: legal autonomy. Farmers and producers were told that standards affecting their businesses could again be shaped elsewhere. Supporters framed it as efficiency, detractors saw surrender. The argument stopped being ideological and became constitutional. If Parliament no longer has the final say, what exactly was reclaimed? That question echoed across debates, interviews, and constituency offices, leaving the government scrambling for language that no longer convinced. At that point, Brexit stopped being policy and became a referendum on honesty. Accusations of betrayal spread rapidly, cutting across party lines. MPs who once defended compromise now spoke of broken promises. The 2016 vote, they argued, was not advisory, and certainly not temporary. If its outcome could be diluted through technical agreements without public approval, then democratic consent itself was weakened. This wasn't nostalgia, it was legitimacy. Voters who already felt ignored now felt tricked. The sense that decisions were being made quietly, efficiently, and without accountability hardened into something far more dangerous: resentment. And resentment, when measured, suddenly showed up in polling.
Surveys began revealing a political shift few had predicted so quickly. Reform UK surged, overtaking established parties in key projections. What was once dismissed as protest politics now looked uncomfortably real. Nigel Farage's name stopped being used ironically and started being used seriously. For Labour MPs in marginal seats, this wasn't a media storyline, it was an existential threat. When voters believe the system no longer listens, they don't drift gently, they bolt. That bolt was underway, and Westminster could feel it. But the most dangerous rebellion was not outside the party, it was inside it. Within Labour, discipline fractured. More than 100 MPs signalled opposition to core government positions. Votes were defied, amendments multiplied. Internal channels, once used for coordination, became arenas for open hostility. MPs began prioritising constituency survival over party loyalty. That shift is lethal for any government. Authority relies on fear, respect, or belief. When all three fade, control evaporates. The Prime Minister's circle reportedly shrank, advice narrowed, and confidence drained away. This was not dissent at the margins, it was structural breakdown. And once authority collapses, ambition fills the vacuum. Leadership speculation stopped being whispered and started being broadcast. Senior figures contradicted policy publicly. Potential successors positioned themselves carefully but visibly. Timing mattered. With elections looming, MPs feared being dragged down by association with an unpopular leader. Some argued removal was damage control. Others warned it would accelerate the collapse. Either way, paralysis set in. Government functioned on autopilot while rumours drowned out policy. Stability, the very promise that won power, now looked like a punchline. Yet the implications stretched far beyond party politics. This crisis struck at the constitutional foundations. Britain relies on conventions, restraint and respect for Parliament, rather than a written constitution. Critics warned that those guardrails were bending. Major international commitments were pursued with limited scrutiny. MPs questioned whether executive power was expanding unchecked. Once such precedents are set, they rarely reverse. The fear was not only about Brexit, but about future decisions made the same way. When parliamentary sovereignty weakens, democratic confidence follows. Which brings us to the moment voters now control. The coming elections are no longer routine. They're shaping up as a verdict on trust itself. Constituencies once considered safe are swinging sharply. Voters who lent support for stability now speak of betrayal. Whether the Prime Minister survives will depend less on speeches and more on belief. Belief that votes still matter. History shows governments do not fall in a single moment. They unravel when confidence drains away. Britain now stands at that edge, deciding whether this chapter ends in renewal or rupture. If you want clear, fearless breakdowns that cut through spin and explain what Westminster is really doing, like the video, subscribe to Britain Voice, and share your view in the comments, because democracy only works when people refuse to look away.